So we did have a colored pen. Before our midterms, we started reading a story called Anakita, and we're going to finish that story at some point in time. And what we're doing is we're just sort of figuring out what we can figure out here. We're slightly in decompression mode just for a little bit because ramp up the pressure for your performances and then notch the pressure down a little bit. Your final for this class is going to be a test. So on the during finals week, we'll have an exam just to figure out what we're doing. If by chance you tanked that exam, you would probably still be fine. That does not mean you shouldn't try, but that means it's, as far as what we do with language assessments, I think it's always interesting. Sometimes performance can add anxiety, and sometimes it doesn't always reflect how we're actually doing in the language. But I think we should still be conscious of where we're at, where we're trying to be, and just sort of thinking of these things, and also what we're doing with our time while we're away from the classroom. It's always an important factor for any language student, and it's always an important factor for the future of the whole Tlingit language. So there's enough pressure because everything depends on you to keep the language going, but I do take a look at it to figure out what potentially would have been going right, what potentially would have been going wrong for you as a student, and hopefully you're doing the same thing. As far as what you're graded on for this class, it's mostly showing up, trying, showing a strong degree of effort and care in what you're doing. But that's mostly what I look for. But the test will do the exam, and I'm hoping you guys will all do well. It'll cover everything we've done as far as the beginning Tlingit workbook up to this point. We might throw a couple new things in there, but those ones probably wouldn't be on the exam. Once we finish our story, we'll move back into moving through those whole things and just trying to figure out what all of those things are trying to teach us about Tlingit. Are there any questions?
Is it a letter, or is it like a test with answers that we circle? I thought at the beginning of the year we said the final is a letter, written in Tlingit.
Oh, did we say that?
Yeah.
I was banking on that for my brother's speech.
Oh, right. What does the syllabus say? The syllabus says a test, though.
No, does it say test?
What? I guess we should have a syllabus test. Hold on, let me take a look. Isn't it a letter?
Oral projects. Yeah. Students will compose a one-page letter entirely in Tlingit and share it with the class. In addition, students will take a final exam that tests listening, speaking, and reading.
Bang! Yes!
We all just have really selective memory.
Okay, let's do that. Great, make more work for us, guys.
So how will that work? The letter part of it.
So the letter should be double space is fine. There shouldn't be a whole bunch of empty space in any given, so it shouldn't say
No charts and
days, person, their 3 address line. It should just say dear, whatever. And so when we've done this in the past, and in the past I've actually done this in the intermediate 205 class. But I figured we'll just try it. Even if you're just sort of, and so who could you address a letter to in Tlingit is probably the question to start asking yourself. I've had people who have written them to Barack Obama. I've had students who have written them to themselves. I've had students who have written them to all of the Tlingit language learners. one that wrote to a sibling. So just think about what matters to you as far as being able to communicate, and then doing the best that you can, and then sharing that with us here as a group. And we'll talk a little, it'll certainly help you out. One thing that we should talk about that's a really good resource for language learning, and I'll put up on the screen. And we'll talk a little bit about how to use the most common resources that we use. Let me drag a couple things up here. We'll start with 3 things that help us to put some sentences together. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here for a little bit. So the first thing is the Tlingit. Is that me? Is that coming from me? Somebody on the phone? Anybody on the phone?
I'm on the phone.
Okay. There's Cheesh.
Somebody else is too connected. There's no breathing sometimes.
Oh, really? Who else is on the phone?
Yeah, I'm actually on the phone. But kind of my computer. I'm not trying to stay.
Okay. And just try to mute your phones if you can while you're not talking. I was on 2 really silly stories. One is I was on a teleconference one time and somebody was breathing really heavy. We all kept saying, "Who's breathing? Stop breathing!" Not stop breathing like you'll never breathe again, but don't breathe so heavy on the phone. And then nobody would admit that they were breathing heavy on the phone. So we were just conducting this meeting, and the whole time we just hear this heavy. And I told that story to a colleague, and they said one time they called into a meeting, and there was only one other person on the phone, and everybody else was in the room. And that person took the phone into the bathroom, and you could hear them peeing into the toilet. And he felt like saying, "That's not me." Anyway, on to more pressing business.
I was wondering if you could email us some guidelines for your executive also.
Oh, for the final?
Yeah, I kind of am having a hard time with the phone and Google Plus thing. So it'd be cool if you could send me the guidelines.
Okay. Yeah, I'll write up some guidelines by the end of the week and send them out for everyone. Well, basically, you're composing a 1-page letter in Tlingit. And even if you're pasting together a bunch of sentences that you locate, as long as it seems to make sense and do something, where students get themselves in trouble, I think, is when they try to have super awesome but overly ambitious language goals for some of their finals. So I want to translate this poem. I want to, translate my own poetry into, And so sometimes I'm thinking, well, poetry is already doing some things that are really, they're pushing English as far as a language. And then you want to try to translate, and sometimes the concepts don't always work. But instead, let's just think about what we're trying to do with the language and what we're capable of doing. And it's okay if we're capable of just taking small steps now, and we'll take much bigger steps later. But I think you'll find that you'll have a higher degree of success if you narrow your focus into something that a first-year language student should be doing. And that means maybe you're not going to be translating Shakespeare yet, but maybe you'll be doing something a little bit different. So I would stick to something fairly basic and straightforward, and think of something you'd like to tell somebody in the language. And so there's any number of things, and we'll talk about some potential ideas as we go along. Then on the last meeting, there will be a final exam where we're going to test 4 different aspects of being able to use the Tlingit language. Comprehension and listening, speaking and pronunciation, reading, writing. So there'll be less emphasis on the last 2 because the first 2 are obviously the most important. The most important things when it comes to Tlingit is being able to understand what somebody's saying to you and to be able to manufacture language yourself. And it's the first year, so it's not like we're going to have something that's totally new where I'm going to ask you to describe 6 different breeds of dogs in Tlingit. But instead, it'll just be all based on the Tlingit language workbook that we've been working off of. There won't be anything new. There might be a few extra things that we cover between now and then, but we'll spend time reviewing that material, getting you ready, so you should know all the nouns that are listed in there. You should know all the phrases that are listed in there. You should be pretty good at spelling those nouns that are in there. And you should be pretty good at reading any of those phrases or nouns, should you have to. So it'll, I don't know how many questions we'll have. One time I had like 100 and some. We won't have that many. I got way too ambitious myself. But we'll have a number of things where you'll be performing, so there might be a different word for each of you that I ask you to spell, or I ask you to read, or I ask you to tell me. There might be a picture of it, and I'll ask you what the Tlingit word is for it. Or there might be a Tlingit word, and I'll ask you what that is, the translation in English. So that's what you're looking at. We got 3 weeks to get ready. No pressure. It's lots of intense, monumental, massive pressure. So as far as composing, using Tlingit, there's some tremendous resources that are available to you. Oh, I should put one more up here. Hold on one second.
And registration open today for degree seeking students, so you should all sign up for Tlingit in the fall.
I did. Boom! This thing going. Sheesh. So a lot of the work that we're going to look at is based on Carrie Eggleston and what she has done with Tlingit, which is amazing, and builds upon the work that Richard Noah Dowenhauer had done, and Jeff Lear, and Constance Nash and Gillian Story. And these are some folks that you should get to know. So we'll start off with the Dictionary of Tlingit. There's an electronic version. If you have smart devices, tablets, or smartphones, you could download this onto your phones. If you have a computer, you could put it on your computer. It makes looking things up a little bit faster, I think. You should have your printed version. But it's pretty fun because you could carry everything around on little devices. Although it could become a little bit too much of a crutch for you. I remember one time people asked me questions and my phone died. And I'm like, I don't know. Right? So don't make it so that your phone is always there, but make sure that you're committing yourself to learning some new things. Anybody learn anything new lately?
Just learned that the nettles are popping out over it.
Yeah, they are.
Our village.
Nice.
Goes out.
Excellent. Yeah, everything's going to start. All the medicines are going to start coming up pretty soon. Have we learned anything in Tlingit recently?
Oh, well, it's not Tlingit, but Lyle said that the length of the Indian celery is the length of seaweed underwater. So if you get seaweed, just watch how high the Indian celery is, and that's how when you know how to when to get the seaweed in the water.
Wow.
Ooh.
City medicine.
Yeah.
Need a longer break or everything.
Oh, okay. Sheesh.
What's that? What's that? Is you?
Hearing aids and sort of go.
Saegige?
No, sock.
Saegige? Kushta shuch. Okay. So as far as using these resources that you have, a number of things. One is understanding the Tlingit to English section, the English to Tlingit section, and then the thematic section where you could look things up by the type of word that it is. So it's all pretty straightforward if you want to look up the word for black bear, brown bear, marmot. You could find these things. You can also use the search box if you're using a PDF browser, so you could say marmot. And then some options pop up here, and we see that's the word for marmot. Now, when you get into using some verbs, it gets a little bit different. So what this tells you, we're at the early stages of looking at verbs and starting to figure out how they function. Let me zoom way out. So for example, wudlitsa would be to rest. So there's a couple of things to know when you're looking at this particular resource. Oops. One is when you look up a verb, you're going to look it up by the verb root. And when we go through a Nakidak story, we're practicing identifying the verbs, identifying the verb root. As we go a little bit further in, we'll go around with classifiers and things like that. But there's a little number up here. Anybody know what that is?
It's the third version of saw.
Mm-hmm. So what does that mean?
There are two other roots that are saw.
Yeah, so there are roots that are homonyms. They sound exactly the same, but they have a different meaning. Anybody know what the other two are?
Saw, like to name, right?
To name something or to call out. To be narrow. That's the other one. Okay, so some of them there's a whole bunch. T, there's quite a few. Teen, there's quite a few. Aunt, there's quite a few. Con, there's quite a few. So this will show you the verb root and what the homonym number is. But we just sort of keep track of those things. Then it gives you the verb conjugated for third person object, third person subject, if there are objects and subjects there. So this is going to give you the perfective version, the imperfective or progressive imperfective, which in this case it's the progressive imperfective. So that's basically what you'd use for past tense, what you'd use for present tense, and then this is a repetitive form here. So how to use these things. One is we start learning how to conjugate, which is what we'll do. We'll spend a little bit of time in the next couple of weeks conjugating some verbs, talking about the basics, and then also moving them back and forth between these different modes. The future mode isn't listed on here, but I'll show you how to find that for these different verbs. Underneath that, it gives you the definition for that particular one. So that's this one, that's this one, that's this one. The other thing that you should think about, Tlingit does not conjugate verbs for time. It never conjugates verb for time. It conjugates a verb for whether or not that verb has happened. So it's really an occurrence or an event-based language. So you could say wudletsa, and that could mean she or he rested, or she or he is resting now. And there are certain verbs that work like that. Chwasaku. It could mean I knew it or I know it, right? So it's when we move into terms like perfective and imperfective, they have a different meaning, past tense, present tense, future tense, which is more how English functions. When we look at the theme is telling us a number of different things here. And as we learn to start using verbs more, we start learning how these things function. One is it tells us whether or not there's an object. Here there's no capital letter O, so there is no object. There never will be. Whether there's a subject, and there is one here with the capital S. Next it tells us the classifier. This is an L classifier that's plus D. And we'll talk about what that stuff means later. The root. This is telling us whether it has stem variation or not. This is another thing we'll talk about later. Then this tells us the conjugation prefix, and this tells us the verb type. So for now, I would just say there are 5 different verb types in Tlingit. It's like there's 5 salmon, there's 5 fingers. The first one is a positional verb. That's for something to be located somewhere. There's probably only about 10 of them altogether. Seated somewhere, situated somewhere. The second one is an act verb, usually for somebody to be doing something. An event verb, which is what this one is, for something to occur. A state verb, for something to be a certain way. And a motion verb, for something to move. So the thing with Tlingit is always categorizing things. So you keep in mind there are these 5 verb types. And in the, as you get better with Tlingit, you're going to have to realize what type of verb that is, because it'll conjugate differently depending on what type of verb it is. The conjugation prefix, all Tlingit verbs except for positional verbs have one. And it affects the way that the verb conjugates, and it pops up in certain forms. It pops up mostly in the command form of the verb. For example, shitsa would be the command for rest yourself. So moving out of this, so this gives you some basics. The other document you could take a look at is the Tlingit Verb Dictionary, which is the yellow covered book, which is now out of print. There's still quite a few floating around. We've got quite a few on campus. They'll probably reach a time where this one is used probably more electronically than anything, and maybe even is incorporated into newer dictionaries. This has probably one of the highest numbers of actual verb listings in it, but it's listed quite a bit differently than the way things are now. So you've got alphabetical here, so you can look up verbs to abstain, to be acceptable, to accompany, add to, active, act like. So let me find the verb. So this is telling you what kinds of things need to come before the verb. So we have what's called a preverb space, and then we have the verb itself. And you'll learn how to put this stuff together. But what this gives you, it gives you the sort of base of what it looks like. It doesn't necessarily tell you whether there's objects or subjects right here, but it does if you were to look up. So this is doc sitan, or sitan is how it's listed. So we see here siu doc sitan, and then doc sitanch. So this gives you just some more like sentence examples. Some of the sentences in here are just really, they're really interesting. Your brother will be raised from death. And so you get a lot of Christian-based sort of sample sentences in here. You'll see lots of Bible examples. You'll see some other strange, I think there's one in here like, they're going to throw you into the boiler. So there's just some really interesting sample sentences in here. Some of them are just more straightforward, like putting the flag up. I'm raising my nephew. They rallied around him. There'll be lots of drunks. Let's move on. But it doesn't necessarily give you how to put all the pieces together, but the more you learn about verbs, the more you'll be able to put those pieces together. So if your one sentence letter has lots of sort of conjugation problems or grammatical problems, I'm not necessarily worried about that. What I'm worried about is, can I read this thing and get an idea of what you're trying to say? And we'll have some time to work on it in class and to share some examples. And you don't have to just go from scratch on putting it together yourself. Okay, there's a number of other things that I'll show you as far as how to use these resources. For now, I'll show you one more, then we'll get back into our story. So this is the most useful verb site there is, or source right now. This is 575 Tlingit verbs, which is a project of the Gold Belt Heritage Foundation and the Sea-Alaska Heritage Institute, carried out by Carrie Eggleston. So this has two sections. It has the English section, which you could use, and so you can look up a verb through here, to be afraid. And if you click on that, that'll bring you here. So this will show you the theme, and we'll talk about how these themes work. There's a lot of different stuff going on up here. And we'll go through what that stuff means. But the beauty of this is it conjugates for a bunch of different forms. I'm afraid of it. He or she is afraid of it. I'm not afraid of it. She's always afraid of it. I was afraid of it. So it gives you lots of conjugations. And these are what we call verb modes: imperative, imperfective, so on and so forth. I'm just talking about what the verb is really trying to communicate. And then some of them they'll conjugate quite a bit for person as well. So moving back, the other thing you could do is you could look up by verb root, which I think as you get more familiar with these verbs, you spend more time on the Tlingit side than the English side, looking at verbs that maybe you're seeing as you read through a story, or trying to remember what the verb root is, but you can't remember how to put the other pieces together. Like, for example, under G, you'll have goot, which is to walk, and then maybe you want to have wugoot, to just walk in general. And then you might have down here ade yan chakut, I'm going there. This you could substitute any noun that you could go to. Neiste yan chakut, I'm going home. Shkun de yan chakut, I'm going to school. Hundakehiti de yan chakut, I'm going to the store. Nich de yan chakut, I'm going to the beach. Dak de yan chakut, I'm going inland. And so this is just sort of utilizing these different resources that are here and seeing that it does a ton of the work for you, which is awesome, because we never had anything like this when I was studying Tlingit. A bunch of spoiled brats. Any questions? We'll spend some more time with this stuff.
So the textbooks aren't part of this class anymore?
No, they are.
But they're not required to have, you just do the online stuff?
We have them every night.
But almost everything except for the beginning Tlingit is also available electronically. Any other questions?
Always.
Everybody okay? Anybody not okay?
Are you gonna write the things on the board again, or are we just gonna go from our memory? With
Oh,
the
that's right.
pronunciation?
Hold on, let me put it on the
I was
screen.
gonna ask.
Okay. So let me make a handy dandy cheat sheet for moving between the inland writing system and the coastal writing system for Tlingit. And I'll email this to those of you who are on the phone. I forgot I have a million documents open right now. Okay, let's open this. Something I think I may have learned is, let me share screen. Those of you on the phone, I'm sharing the screen, but I'll send this to you in a moment. Okay. These are three closely related things, but they're different. First one is, and I think I figured it out, but I'm not 100%. So, so, I believe, based on my discussion with elders, this is what we call giant kelp in English. Geesh.
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 Yataqa. Bull kelp. Bull kelp.
Sounds familiar.
Kaja.
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 This is a kelp island. Like some kelp that has dried together and now it's this big, or it's not always even dry, but it's just this massive kelp that things could fall on it and it'll usually still be there. What's that?
It's like what the sea otters are.
Yeah, the sea otters hang out there. Raven landed on that when after the flood. And I'm getting pretty sure about this because I've heard su in a story and geesh, and there's been some confusion about which one is really which. And part of this comes around because a lot of the Tlingit speakers that would know the difference between these things, they would just know by seeing them, but they might not necessarily know the different English terms, giant kelp as opposed to bull kelp as opposed to some other, And then I think there's a need for a couple of different things. I think to match what the Tlingit terms are to what the common sort of English terms are, and then probably the scientific terms are, in terms of a wide variety of different types of plants, especially when you get into some of the medicinal plants and things like that. I know that there's a couple of them that we know the Tlingit words for, but not necessarily the English words for. So I think where the disconnect is, some of the speakers that would know this stuff may not know what the terms are in English. Some of the people who study this stuff in terms of the difference between these different types of kelps aren't necessarily interested in Tlingit. So trying to bridge those things, plants, small birds, insects. That's where I see sort of a gap in Tlingit that people could do some work in. That's what I learned this week. It was fun. Okay, so enough of that. On to our writing systems. So we've got A. Let me set this up. And do a little table here. This will be my conversion system. So as far as how to alphabetize these things, it's an interesting question. I've been working on a dictionary project, and it's highly customizable as far as how you alphabetize things. And this is how I have them ordered. A, high-toned A, long high-toned A, E, high-toned E, EI, high-toned EI, high-toned I, EE, high-toned EE, U, high-toned U, OO, high-toned OO. So thinking about these vowel pairs, you've got to think of them as sets, I think. And as we move back and forth between the coastal writing system and the inland writing system, sometimes they're a little different. So what we're going to do is I'll make this a little bit of a different color, maybe this one as well. So I will say the vowel. I guess we got to at some point give these things their own names. But for a standard low-toned A, how would you write that in the inland writing system? A. For a high-toned A, same. So there's an A with an accent mark on it going up from the left side to the right side. Long and low. So this is the AA on the coastal system with no
Is
accent.
that the A with the backwards one?
So that is an A with a downward accent. And then the high-toned long A, the one with the caret.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what you have. So when you see an A with no tone mark, it's up. When you see it with a tone mark, when you see it with the tone mark that's going downward, and with the caret mark, the little hat, and that goes the same for these here. Oops, I didn't do what I want you to do. I'll do these ones. And I'll send this to you guys because we're going to start reading this. And it helps to have it like this. So the advantage of the inland writing system is that you do have the same letter for each of the four, so the letter itself doesn't change. Because I think the difficulties that people were imagining is going from E to EI, and understanding that goes from to A, and going from an I to an EE, which goes from I to E, and then a U to an OO. Ooh. So where this is a good writing system is that you're trying to see that these things operate in sets, because they do. It's a connected set, and you'll see that as you work more and more with Tlingit. The disadvantage is that keeping vowels long when they should be long is sometimes hard for learners, and when you see just one letter, you don't always think that's a longer letter than what the other ones would. I'm going to send this to the gang, then we'll start reading. And knock it out.
They don't use underlines.
Oh, no, there are no underlines. That's correct. So let me add those as well. Oops. So an underline X in XH. Whoops. Correct, no. You're too smart. Okay. How am I going to check? I'm going to say, no, don't do it. Okay. Underline K, be KH. No. Underline G, it's going to be GH. Okay. That's how we take care of underlines, and whether there's an apostrophe after it, it doesn't matter, that would come after the H. Cheesh. Okay, now we'll email this to the gang, then we'll get started. Everybody have the Tanaki Duck story? Or anybody not have it? Where did we leave off? Anybody remember?
68.
Okay.
It was.
Oh, right at that break. Okay. It's been a little while, so I think we'll start with a quick read through. I'm going to pull this up on, I'll put it on the screen. Anak Idak. This is a story told by Elizabeth Nyman. Seideya Ayat Tlingit Sayi. Anybody want to read the English? Let's do a quick read through of get us caught up to where we were. Okay. So I'll read the Tlingit, read the English. Check away ach in skadetnigen. Oh, we're at the very beginning. Sorry. We're just going to read.
Okay.
We're going to read one sentence at a time, and we're not going to analyze any of it, just to get us caught up to where we left off.
Okay. They always used to tell me stories, and I paid attention to what they said. They told me this story about the nothing duck.
You show what to play do the to play day do kade yakuna hain kun yakuna shgats.
A certain woman's due date was fast approaching. She was traveling along camping with her people.
Talk away kasne ka tukane do wake and akut chashit ka kate the shooch.
They never used to have their babies at home. They would erect a hut separate from the other dwelling. Now, a certain woman was having labor pains. They had come from somewhere and were traveling along camping.
Away on the day way yakut. Hey, K woot away kick car de away chashit you do zini. K adu.
There was a small lake there. They camped on the shore there. My, they put up huts facing each other. They built only one fire in the midst of them. The woman finally went into labor, they say. So then they gathered around her and erected a separate hut for her. The inside of the hut they fixed up nicely for her. They made it nice and warm. Then the women like her mother's sister or her older sister or her mother, gathered around her. Eventually the baby was born, and they put it in a cardboard. They put it in a cradle board and strapped its hands in cardboard. They set up a hammock for it and laid it on it. After so many days, a bird was hopping about on the lake shore. It was called the lake bottom child. What's that lake bottom child they're up to now? They said, the youngsters said. There it goes hopping that way again, they said too. In doing, they ridiculed it. That lake bottom child has come hopping that way again, so they said. Then, too, it appears that nobody told them to stop saying that. They intentionally insulted it. So those lynx blankets, beaver blankets, and other kinds, wolverine blankets, and others various kinds, wolf blankets, all kinds of blankets, they all lay around sleeping in them, and this way too, like that. When they were fast asleep, the lake bottom child came hopping among them. It went about pulling all their eyes up from out of the sockets. First it removed the people's eyes. For some reason they didn't feel it. It went among those on this side, the people, and those on this side, and it followed the direction of the sun, walking among the people like that. Eventually, it removed all the people's eyes.
I think that's where we left off. Pulling the eyes out. Oops. I did not scroll the screen to follow. So that leaves us right here. Okay. So while we're going through this, I'll read the sentence in Tlingit. You'll read the sentence in Tlingit. Then you'll tell me any verbs that you might spot and what the verb roots might be. And we'll just make our way through. Everybody online? Got this? Following okay? We are now online. We got ourselves caught up. This is where we left off a couple weeks ago. We are on line page 220. This is line 68. Anahida. Beep beep. Wasawe atwuni.
Oh, that's it, okay. Wasua Patuni.
Uni is the verb. It's the verb root. Ni. And that would be ne in some other places. So you could say wasa atwune or wasa atwuni, which is the right thing to say when you walk in and everybody's eyes are out. What happened? So it's basically that really translates to what happened. The literal translation would be, how did that happen? Right? So say, like, if say I bought myself a Gatorade, and then I walked out, and I came back and my Gatorade was gone. What happened? Where's my Gatorade? Ye suqi ayewuni. Kahwawek adin kaakahih.
Yesu ka'aye wuni. Kahwa we kadane ka'akahih ka'akahih. Oh, wuni. Hih, hih.
Yep. Kahih. Verb roots.
Ni again. And hih.
Yep. So in this case, it's the same ni as before for something to happen. Yewuni. Dawn. It dawned. It occurred. It really became dawn. So that ihich would be. There's two types of hich. Well, there's several types, and two that might be applying here. One is for something to occur, but this one is probably for heavenly bodies to move, like the sun or the moon, especially. Aqa'awe we shawat de cha du shoot of du aknijan.
Away. Do shawat. Do chuck. Do shoot. Do ni jin. Do up.
Verb root?
Hawk.
Yeah. Ak. So in this case, shoot adu ak would be the whole verb. And that would mean for somebody to build a fire. So this particular verb root is to build a fire, ak. But it has to be with that shoot in the before the verb. You get this thing after nijin, people always used to do that. So this is saying, at this time, they usually started a fire for the woman. But what she's communicating here is it hasn't happened now, although it seems to be expected. Wasa'atuni.
Wasa'atuni.
Verb pa'a. Verb root. Same verb, what happened. And it could, in the instance of telling stories, and the sort of rhythm you create with Tlingit telling stories, wasa'atuni. So this is what we'd sometimes call a riddle, and so they might be asking, they're literally saying, what happened? But what they're telling you is somebody was trying to figure out what was happening or what was wrong. Yesh ujta, this would be your turn. Keltu asahach ukut.
Tletsu asahahu.
Sheesh. What's the verb there?
Good.
Mm-hmm.
The root is good.
Yep. The root is goot. So in this case, you've got the klesh, and that goes all the way across to the other stuff. Tsu, sa, hach, gut. And that's making the verb negative. So you can see you can have the negative particle right at the front. You can have a whole bunch of other stuff. And then the verb there at the end. And it's affecting that verb. So here you've got klesh, su. Again, sa would be somebody or anybody, but in this case, kesh asa hach ukut, and that would translate as nobody came, even though it's just sort of more like saying not somebody there didn't come. And that's how Tlingit works. So another example would be like ausaku, he or she knows. Kesh dasa awasku. And that makes the verb negative, and you've got this dasa there. But that translates in Tlingit to he or she doesn't know anything. Right? So nobody came. That's how that one works. Dech uchi away wishawat adeke uwa ich da. Oh wait, that's a sentence. Yagistai what?
She isn't here.
Oh, Kubuch, sorry, the screen was frozen. I couldn't see who was there.
Dech away way shawat. They K
Okay. And which ones are the verbs? There's one more.
Yes, what's the code?
Anybody know?
Are they?
It's on the line above it. Uchi. Uchi is for for time to pass. And this is really interesting because I actually just figured this out from Bessie Cooley. She's the one who explained it to me. When you say dech uchi away, that means 2 days have passed. Even though you don't need the word yagi in there at all. Dech uchi away. So then you've got finally after 2 days. Oh, we haven't been doing the English. What was the matter? It was now dawn, and eventually it became full daylight. At this time, they usually started a fire for the woman. What was the matter? Nobody came anymore. Finally, after 2 days, the woman called over that way. So, in this case, ke uwa ich. The verb root is ich, which means to call out or to yell. Chish. Han kech. Da hat akaguti yuan de at achkanachwuti yuchayakha.
Da hat gudeti yai wa de at ax kan wut you ax ati.
Yuchayakha is that last part.
You I hat.
Okay. Hey, dech, nas. You got 3 verbs there. Any guesses on them?
Ayaka.
Ayaka is a verb. Yuchayaka is the whole verb. Two others. Anybody? Wuti.
Gudi.
Qaqudi. Qaqudi. Okay, what are our verb roots? Qaqudi, wuti, yuchayaka. Qa, which is to say. The other ones? T, to be. Last one? Goot. So it's got a suffix on there. It's a little tricky. De hat aqaquti yuwan. So she's saying, somebody come over here. One of you come over here to this place. De at ach kanachuti. Coldness has come upon me. So when you say ach kanachuti, it has come upon me. Yuchayaka, she said. All right. Let's see, when we got two on the phone, so we'll do Christina first. You ready? Ashtin, are you on the phone? Okay, come back to
We didn't read the English.
Oh, we didn't read the English. Sheesh. Will one of you please come here? I'm freezing cold, she said. Okay, you ready? Kestu keich pushkach. Pushkach. And there's a fun one. Everybody, let's say that one. Pushkach. 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 Okay. And the verb is obvious here. But the verb roots, anybody? Cut. To cake. And it's a really interesting, so it says, there was no reply, nobody said a word, not again one person was silent. Kat means to silence yourself. The most common use of this verb is not a very nice one, so you have to be careful with it. Shikat, which means shut yourself up. You gotta be careful with that. That's a good one to know. I taught my daughter to say it to some dog that was barking right in her face. She was yelling at it. I was like, Shikat. She said, Shikat. Wasaya de atnani ye awetuwati.
Wasaya de atnani ye awetuwati.
Verbs get.
Nani.
Yep. Atnani. So you got nani. To a T. And the roots.
Root would be T.
T to be.
And nani.
And ni to occur. Wasaya de atnani ye awetuwati. What could the matter be, she thought. Or you could say, what happened, she thought. Ye awetuwati. That's how she felt inside. Yat a tad away de tsu de kach ke at nashich.
Yat ta away de tsu du kach ke at nashich.
Verb get.
Nashich.
Nashich is the verb. The whole thing would be ke at nashich. That's okay. Because it's including like all the stuff that goes along with the verb. What would the verb root be? I'll tell you this. It's not shich.
Nashich. Is that nashich?
She.
Shit.
What's that? Heech. X-E-E-X. So there's these things, there's a lot of contraction that happens in Tlingit and pen throwing. And so when you get nashich, that becomes two awkward, so it just becomes nashich. And nashich means to run. So here you've got, that night something had come running up and trying to get at her. So again, more scary stuff. Yat-a. Can anybody translate that? Yat-a.
It's not like here.
This one, right? Wait-a, that one. Yut-a, that one way over there. And this is something that Tlingit does a lot to sort of call attention to something. Like if I was really telling you the story about this pen, Yat-a-ku-a. Akuhita, right? Like, this one is my pen. Don't touch it. Taught away in the night. Deitsu dukach ke atnashih. It was, so Deitsu, it was really trying to run up on her. Dukach, something. Ke atnashih. Something was trying to run up on her. Kayatu hubu away, you on the snitch.
Playadu ku away. You on the switch.
The verb?
On a snitch.
On the snitch. Verb root.
Is it just
Knee. So the CH is a repetitive suffix, so it's saying that something was, it was trying to do something to her blanket.
Over and over again.
Yeah, so it was probably trying to grab it off of her. A scary thing. Kai tsu we du tukane tsu chukai ayadat wujah.
Suwe do tukun. I could. Can I say how it's written?
Yeah, you can just say it in the
Okay, I don't know
coastal way, that's fine.
Tukanei Suchuklei Ayada Tuj.
Oh, the English. I guess I gotta remember. That night something had come running up trying to get her. It kept on doing this to her blanket. Her child too, it ran up and tried to get at his face. Verb get? Yep. So wujahich is the verb, hich is the root, again to run. So we see that yachich, the classifier is changing, and it's a different root. Celestial bodies to move. Wujahich, that's a different, the SH classifier, and also a different root for something to run. So what you get with Tlingit is like, there's so much that's buried in the context. So if we just say, it came running around its face. Right? That's all it's saying. But the context of Tlingit is telling you, we know this thing is out there, this little bird that's plucking eyes out, was coming and trying to get her baby too. Ach ke ashaku would keku.
Kuak, Yue, a walk, Ke, a Shaka, Sebu.
Verbs get.
Ashakaklegu.
Yeah. Ashaka would keku. In this case, you've got K right before it, which means up. You've got ach before that, which means off of. Ashaka wu keku. Kek means to like pick something like a berry. And then you've got sha and ka built into it. It's a really unique verb, which probably would literally only be used if something was plucking the eyes out of a head. As if you were picking berries.
I'm sorry, I got disconnected. What line are you on?
Okay, Chish, we're on line 85. And then there's one more verb in there. A verb root. It means to try. There was an elder I was talking to whose husband had recently passed away. And I was trying to give her words of encouragement. I said, Juan. She said, I'm going to try. Aowe kleyu anasnich. Kle dasaya dasa ach ke ach ishicht. Ye awe to wati.
Aowe, Clay, you on a snitch. Clay, Dasaya, Dasa up. Hake is you away to a T. To a T.
To a T, yeah.
K is you.
K ishicht.
K is you. You on a snitch.
You on a snitch. And the verb roots there?
Need.
Need.
And T.
T. And then for K ishicht. It's the he buried again. And in this case, so we've got, they kept on doing this to him. What is this? What is that? Keeps running up and trying to get at me, she thought. So you've got, away, kayu anasnich. And it kept trying to do this. Kay, dasaya, dasa akake ishicht. And the literal translation of that is, what is this? What are you that's trying to run up on me? You away to wati, she thought. Okay, let's take a little break. I think when we come back, we're going to skip the identifying the verb part, and we'll just move into reading the Tlingit in English so we can move through the story. So, 5-minute break. Don't go to the lakeside.
This is from this lake, isn't it?
Yeah. Right. When they were asking for a name for the cafe, I should have said that.
Oh yeah,
Lake Bottom Child.
Yeah, Lake Bottom Child. Yeah.
That would be cool.
And we can have all kinds of inside jokes. Like, could you just pluck that olive out there?
Did I say it right? What? It's Kashi.
I have a theme, obviously, for bringing.
You're just
to this
carrying
class.
around
Yeah. just
bear
carry around
poop?
bear poop everywhere. I made energy bites, and
They're actually
look just like, oh yeah. So there's two different flavors. There's a lemon one on the bottom, and then the dark ones are chocolate flavored. And they basically are just like a whole bunch of oatmeal and flaxseed and chia seeds. And then the lemon ones have dates in them too, and like agave.
Sheesh. Oh, well, I guess we still doing food days.
I thought, I was trying to figure out what rabbit was on Saturday, because I was like promoting the Easter egg hunt thing, and I almost said herring eggs instead of, yeah. So close.
Kind of going around, yeah.
Sheesh.
never had them.
Never had herring eggs?
What?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
What is it?
I know what it is. Love different.
The first time I've ever had my own, I'm so excited. I've just been handing out, I'm like, here. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Herring eggs.
Do you eat the branch?
Yeah, you just
Pull them off.
put it down.
I really don't know.
What are these things?
Bear poop cookies.
They're energy bites.
Favorite.
Yeah, there's bottom ones, and they have lemon.
I like the avocado cookies.
And
Yeah,
then
those are good. What are them?
they're like energy bites, so they just have a whole bunch of flaxseed and oatmeal and stuff. No dairy, no nothing weird.
Good.
I try them every year, and I'm really not a huge fan,
Really?
but I eat them every year because I know I really should.
Is there a coconut in it?
Yes.
It's good. It's like a,
I'm making a better thing. I kind of burn out them really well.
I like soy sauce.
what?
I do not like soy sauce.
I think I got too much soy sauce.
They're,
There is a rabbit.
Let me try. Oh my goodness.
I don't know why. I don't even know if I like them.
I don't even know if you like them.
I've never had them yet.
You've never had herring eggs?
Oh. I've been around them and I've seen them and everyone's like, Danielle, eat them, and I just didn't want to.
Why don't you eat them?
I'm scared. That's
Always
convenient.
eat the herring.
Why are they so loud?
That's the best part.
Don't smell
The first time I had them, I almost threw up on my grandma.
Well, the first time I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I
we
did
were-
like Caesar salad. I did that twice.
Big.
And then after that, it was like, okay, I like these. So,
them. They're so cute.
Did with the little girl in there visit.
It's not like
yeah.
caviar.
My aunt's on there, but she doesn't like it.
Is it eight or eight? Eight.
The textures are good. They like stay together.
It is E8. Isn't it E8 somewhere?
In the southern area, some of the inland communities, Yakutat.
How do they? So the eggs are in the water and they scoop them out with the branch?
No, they lay their eggs on the branch.
Yeah, you go into that branches and then.
Or we put like a whole tree in the water.
Yeah. I just saw
You're
that.
serious.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's like,
Bring a hemlock tree out there and drop it in the water.
Oh no.
Now I see attacking them.
You can also get them
that sounds
from,
beautiful just to pull the whole thing back up and see that business.
Yeah.
There we go.
those are the real Easter eggs.
Yeah.
No, Robbie loves them.
Dang it.
They taste like trees.
I got some at the airport.
Tastes like what?
Trees.
All right. Who went last?
I do.
I think it's supposed to be somebody, I think it's supposed to be Gate Tooch.
Okay, Gate Tooch Top. We're gonna move into a little bit faster mode. I'd recommend those of you just circle what the verb is and maybe underline the root, but we're not gonna go back and review it. We're just gonna read through So for this next phase, I'll read the Tlingit, you repeat the Tlingit line, and then read the English translation, okay?
Oh, okay.
So I will say the Tlingit, then you will say the Tlingit, and then the English. We'll still do just one sentence at a time. Ka hwashke ki aye nani.
Kahwashke Kiaye Nani. Finally, it was daylight.
Okay, Ante Kesh Kuwasti.
I'm sorry, which line are we on?
Oh, this is line 90. Play Kesh Kuwasti.
Klesh. Kesh Kuwasti.
And then read the English line.
It was no longer there.
And who's on the phone now? Is anybody on the phone? Okay, Kashpin, this is line 91. Yesutsu adeich.
And we just read it in English, right?
You read the Tlingit and then read the English.
Okay. So I read line 91?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, I gotta pick what my I'm trying to follow along here.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay. And now read the
And
English.
she called over again.
Kun's cheese. Anyone? Hey, kun ka'aku.
I must make the effort.
Og jeg på du Kijk, dis je nog away je at ka aya kan du wage.
Yet you do this yen away get at ka aya kun do wage. Long ago, when a woman had a child, they would keep her in bed for over a month.
I'll just point out, yep would do uwu is to say she had a baby. You can also say tokane would do uwu, katsu would do uwu. That yet means a child. It could be tokane yet or katsu. It could work either way.
Is that literally saying purchase a baby?
I get saying to use a baby. She used the baby. So Tlingit talks around a lot of subjects: dying, birthing, pooping, and there are some more direct verbs for some of them, but not for others. Kaikadain ka katuati awetsa Yesu kushantus nukch. Kushantus nukch. Sorry.
Kadenga kuvuti ye awaits Yesu whose heart does
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh, I didn't finish neither.
I know.
Kwitsa cook at anakutch.
Good. No.
Yeah, that was good.
There. Not until she was quite well again was she helped off her bed. She would walk around with the aid of a cane.
Utsaka, the one that was stabbing it, the one that was poking it. That's a cane. Away do utsaka yi awatan ade we at kushigati ye.
away do what they way cool so the woman took up her cane and started over there to the campsite.
So we to claim the cut cash to work on so cash kusti. Oh, to claim at couch kids.
Dasoi to catch the cut to catch to wake on to catch Kusti to play at the kids. Lo and behold, they were all lying motionless, and there was no longer a fire either. It was out.
At your way clepa your duck shall we yish.
What should we take paw? Yuck. Yuck.
Yeah.
Yuck. Yuck. So is. Oh, sorry. She pulled back the blankets to uncover their faces.
So we to claim as she kaka wax it your duck shall it. Oh, she yells it.
That's the way they cut. Shape. They cut.
Wax it
Yak, duck, shayad, lo and behold, there was nothing but blood filling every one of their eyes.
Well, that's a fun sentence.
Yeah. There's something about that being the eye socket. I'm not exactly sure how it works. I'll have to take a look at it. Okay.
She went among them like that.
And then Tante Kushta Yate Hain you up to test to nach ye ute.
I'm sorry, is that 108?
This should be 109. And the first word is Kusha Yate Hain.
Kushayeta ain chu yet te sucha. I'm not sure what the last one is.
Kleinach
Kleina.
Chaye ute.
Chayeta une.
And then the English.
She went among them like that. There were a lot of people, they say, and not one of them was untouched.
Okay. Class 10, ready? What's the
Are you talking to me?
Yes, okay. Okay, we're going to do a fairly long one here. We're on 112, I think. We'll get up to toasted eyeballs. Ade awe u ach ayanach yakausenik ako ade awe u achwe pawa pikwachhi.
Ade awe
U ach
ayana ya Medina
Yeah, that one is Yakauchnik.
What's that?
Oh, Yakauchnik was that one. Sorry, you're okay. Just keep going.
Ade away, which away. She kept hearing it over there. I did this part of the story. She kept hearing it over there.
Kawaki Kwachki.
Kawake, watchke. Toasted eyeballs.
Kawaki Kwachki.
Toasted eyeballs.
You away at Wujik and Kawaki Kwachki.
You away up in no. Kawaki Wachi. It was hopping around like that. Toasted eyeballs.
Kawaki Kwachki.
Kawaki Wachi. Toasted eyeballs.
You away at Kawi wait at.
You awake, I kawe wait up. So it's saying that thing.
You could serve toasted eyeballs at the cafe, the Lake Bottom Cow Cafe.
Oh, yes. Very perfect. Kawaki Kwachki. And that is a an undocumented verb except for this. Which means to toast something really quickly. Okay, now we are on 220, page 224, next page. Ha ha ya anakit.
That mean,
Or 225.
Okay. Are we on? Did I go too far?
Oh wait, I was on the wrong page.
Okay.
Sorry, I was like, what?
Okay, I just turned it over. Yeah. What?
No, I just went.
okay.
Yeah.
Wait.
Huh?
I thought I just.
That was a toasted eyeball.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That was a
Trimmed up so much
the fourth
over it.
toasted eyeball. Ha ha. Ya anakit. Ya anakit.
You're on a pit. Oh, she was getting suspicious of it.
Siya ade duwa achwe wait ati we atayati.
Siya, adeye, yuwa, we tsatsi, we atayadi. It's actually what it was she heard over there, that bird, the lake bottom child.
Yituchta tsatsi ayu you asakatnik cha'an ko'a you are tag awekutziti.
See, ayu, you, kani, aan, kua, you, tak, awe, kudziti. It was a bird, they say, but it lived on the lake bottom.
Sheesh. Tantech awe on yakudukliqat.
On away, yeah, anya, yeah, kun, kunwa, du, lay, aya,
Kudukliqat.
kudu, aya. That was what they offended with their words.
Okay. Qatin. Ha ha. Wa sayakhat qati. You away to a T. You are.
What line are we on?
Oh, we're on line 131.
131.
It's on page 224. Ha ha. Was.
Saya cut the you away to a T.
Uh-huh.
Ya to not the the how far do you want me to read?
Oh, that was good. That was good. So then just read the English.
Oh my, what is you order me? Because of me, she thought every day. First of all, she sat and wept. Her mother and father.
Whoa. Whoa, that was good. That was good. Just cheese. Du klar has, du ish has, du ik has, du shatri has, du kak has, du sunny has, say dach ud de heen, ach.
Du klar hast, du ich hast, du ich hast, du Shaki hast, du Kach hast, du Sani hast, Sedach Udin Gach. Her mothers and fathers, her brothers and sisters, her mother's brothers and her father's brothers. She lamented them and was weeping.
Ha, wasak shewe khat kukati you away to a tea you up.
Wahasa shewe khatu qati you away to a tea you are.
Aqa away you up. Kaya sugar are ye. Kakaudu ya ye. Who away. Kay not out the ish. Where shall what? Kay do. Kay way do. Yet could so. Search up on that so a dade a kayi. Kay you. So a niyade. Search up on a you so. Wash ku da sa ku kay wuch kinade ya akana jet.
I'm screwed.
You're like the best ones. Didn't this happen last time?
Yes.
You get all these blankets.
Got it.
Oh man. Okay. Ga away you are. Playa shugu aye. How do I yaye? Who away? Play not out dish way shawat. Play where do yet you to cha. Oh my gosh, you guys.
Gonna
Gonna to da de akayi no
akayi.
akayi play you to I no to
Aneyade.
I apologize. To cha gonna to gwash wait
Ku.
das
Ku.
Who dasa gach who klewuch kinde ach
Kanade.
kanade kanyade ya ach kana gate
Kana jet.
kana gate.
You should come Wednesday with just blankets, fur blankets, piled all over yourself. I'm ready. Got them all.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, then they say, the first of the blankets draped over one of the people. She pulled over her shoulders, the woman, and her child too. She wrapped another blanket around him like this, one after the other. Maybe martin blankets, the other kinds, lynx blankets. She kept putting them on, one on top of the other.
Where do you have to pursue? Finally, she was getting quite brown, they say. Her child too.
Utlay de Kestutin way to Yetku. Oh, her child was no longer visible.
Kestutini tach. Yeah, away with two was no seum. Kayat kutan. Kestutin tach. Ha wasaya keka watu kestutu bushku. Ye on at a satani we who cut away not a cow digest.
Where do Yatku? So, oh no.
Hawa saya.
Hawa saya. Check. Hawa to play do to ushku. Shoot ye on it or satani we who check to cut away not a call digest. For some reason, eventually she didn't want the blankets to go to waste on the bodies lying there, so she just put all of them on.
Away such a ye silky ye wunny ye away. Gonna ye for good chuck away. Where do you could so? What ye chick tin give way ya honest chick. Yay.
Agak away sa Yesu ki ye uni away uni. Sorry, I'm just learning these symbols.
Gonna yek for good. Gonna yek for good.
Una ye
Good.
good. Chaku ye away. Uwe ju yaku. Gwash we jik tin we ya
Chick.
Then it was just getting daylight. She was about to start walking aimlessly, she and her child. Perhaps she was carrying him on her back in a sport.
So that jik and unash jik would be probably the verb for packing a baby around in a cradle board. Yes, tuchta aqa away hun you de kutis.
Aka away, hun you are, you de kutis. Then she stood, they say, looking off into the distance.
Han hech dat skits gat nach satin.
Das sit hanaskati. What shall I become now?
Ulch's away. Dat skiwaits echat nach satiye. Oh, Qashtin. That one was you, sorry.
That line 168?
Yeah. Do you want me to read it again? Ulchid. Do you want me to read it again?
Can you read it slowly? Because then
Okay.
put back on for the echo.
Okay. Ulchid away. Dat skiwaits echat nach satiye.
Es away, das away, nach the
Goodness, sheesh.
What shall I become now? She thought about it.
Adayi to wadhunk athan. Kachu ka yeya wunakin.
Ada u tuak tank athan khe tu khe ka wa yeah what yeah sorry
Yeya wunakin.
yeah unakhe. She thought about it standing there. She spoke the words slowly and deliberately.
Adachtu yeya waka. Dat skewes echat nach sati.
Adach tsuye yawka. Dat sugwet echat nachsati. After that, she said again, "What shall I become now?"
Yudachun yeya yanaka awake. Anak idak. What are you to eat to the time?
Yudachun away. No. Ye. Ye.
Yeya naka.
Yeah. Stupid brain. Ye yanaka away. Shan ach I dach. Oh. Shan ach I dach. Gwash. Ye. 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 Givu. Do it to what? It to what? Do. Guys. I know. To time. Okay, there it goes. Stupid.
Great.
I lost where it was. It takes so much energy to get through it. She thought about it. Is it that one?
After she said it the fourth time.
I know things because Dufflin was in it. After she said it the fourth time, dang it. Perhaps someone thought she should become that.
Ha ha. Anak idat hat gach sati.
Oh yes, I will become the Tlanachita.
Kanish kite ka yuchat nakasekit. Yet away out lechates.
Kanesh Gide Kaka Yuchat Nakasigit Ye away out Leches, so that I may always give aid to poor people. That is what she prayed.
Kay ach away you'd uwa good clay.
Away you'd over good clay. Then she left and went away.
Du kacha the hain way at du go chakagenach away yanakat.
Kosh. Shayat the hang way at the
Du go.
Gina away yonder boot. She had a lot of animal skins on her, so she walked along slowly.
Wa kunasli ye will go this away with tokane to the kadesh outlikai. Ye tuchta.
Oh, sorry. Wakunashi Wetane Dikade Kauhigai. After she had gone a certain distance, the baby began to fuss on her back.
Ten, are you still on? Ayawa away ya. Oops. Ayawa.
You're 180?
We are line 187. Ayawa away on yanagat.
You said 180, right?
That is line 187. Is that right? 187.
Away. Aya, way, away on Nagut. Yeah, on
Oh, just that one.
What's that?
Just that one sentence. You'll stop at the period.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It's okay.
She should have walking along with him.
Asya anartsin kataqahi.
Very sorry.
188.
Yeah.
Asya anartsin kataqahi.
Jatsya Anatsin Kim
Kataqahi.
Kadagahi. He was crying louder and louder.
Anashkide qaj khon isan ga'achj. Ki awe out khades. Wait, do yet ku taqahi.
Khanashkide Kach Kwan Isanqa Achj You away out liches we do yatku Ktaqahi Let poor people always hear your voice, she prayed as her child cried.
Akach aya yuk qatik. Akach aya yuk qatik. You await the khades.
Akach aya you kufotik, you away ushakis. That will be the way it happens that they recognize us, she was praying.
Now just say a whole bunch of different blankets. How?
Do I dare?
Good cheese choice to cut you, hon. This is some PhD level Tlingit, so good job everybody. See you Wednesday.
Wait. Oh, words. Do we have them due? Because they were due last week. So do we have words this year?
Let's do them Monday. Words on Monday. Let's do 5 nouns, 2 verbs, 2 of something else.
I think we have 2 boxes.
5 nouns, 2 verbs, 2 of something else. Cheesh.
I have no idea.
We have cheese.
Uh,
I'm gonna